who would, when you were like 19 and you had this idea, you know, like you were listening to, you were saying like the Cramps and all these other bands that were playing, like who would you have been if you hadn't had the idea of like this kind of like revelation that you could do your parents or your grandparents' music? What would your band have done if that hadn't occurred to you?
Well, I don't know. Probably would have just been a bad cover band.
Well, yeah, but, yeah, like I had a bad cover band too. But what would you have covered?
Well, see, that's the thing. It probably would end up in the same place.
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
Maybe it would take longer. But just I was thinking about the other day. My brother Joe, he's 5 years older than I am, and he started playing in the band in the mid '60s, '64. And he played drums, and they played all the weddings, dances, and stuff. And they played. James Brown was big at the time, so they played James Brown, Chuck Berry, maybe some Stones thrown in there, but they also played all the Mexican music. They played boleros, and they played the corridos, and cha-cha, stuff like that. Because those are the people. I mean, it was on the east side mostly.
That's what people wanted to hear.
People wanted to hear. So I heard music that way. I grew up hearing that. That it all fit together. So but it probably it probably would have ended up in the same place, but this would take longer. But there's that part of it too. So.
Well, my junior high school band was called Love Gun. Which tells you all you need to know.
I've got one last question, then I want to kind of open it up to everybody here. And it's about kind of the research process for you guys. You both work on so many different projects and always have, and they're both very thoughtful, and in particular the word that David used earlier about kind of the respect for the music. How is it when you delve into Cuban music or any of it? You've done so many different works in different music from different parts of Latin America, for example. What's your kind of a research process like with deciding on these projects and how they're going to get started?
Well, like I say, I mean, with the Franz Casellas stuff, which is, I don't know, technically not Latin America, it's Francophone, Haiti. I recorded that because Franz asked me to, because at a particular point he physically was unable to play. He had a tendon problem in his right hand and he couldn't play anymore, and his only existing record, it was on Folkways, and at the time that label was falling apart because the guy who ran it, Moses Ash, was ill and just wasn't sending out the boxes anymore. It was before they got picked up by Smithsonian. And so he asked me to record it, because nothing else was happening with the music. And I had an opportunity to record it, so I did. But and that I just did because I wanted to do that. I kind of, by default, I was the only one who knew that stuff at that point. But with other stuff, like I say, I'm doing archaeology on what I already like and trying to say, okay, where does that come from? Like I kind of played. So with the Cuban stuff, the idea was, again, going back to the Tom Waits stuff, I had kind of I had come up with that style of playing that was partly based on Cuban music, and it mushed a bunch of different things together, and I wanted to pick them apart. I also did a Django project around the same time. It didn't sound much like Django either because we had Henry Grimes on bass with some of the gigs. But still, I listened to a whole lot of Django records and transcribed because I wanted to see where what I was already doing came from. And so, you know, so I knew that part of it had to do with Cuban music, but I wanted to see, well, exactly who played those licks? You know, who invented them? You know, who first played them? Who was the genius of them? So that's where that project, you know, came from. And I didn't really think it was going to. I mean, the Django project, nothing much happened with it. We played it in a couple bars, and that was it. And I didn't really know that this would be any different, but then, you know, I guess on our second or third gig, we got signed to Atlantic, so it wound up being different, you know, so we ran with it, and I wound up getting much more into it. And those are, as far as I can think, the only two recording projects that I've done. I should also say that at the time when I did that, it was also a kind of great relief for me to do something just because I liked it, because, again, these kind of unpleasant ideas of authenticity had come up with the radical new Jewish music thing, that, okay, you're this, so you're supposed to sound like that, and I like the idea of saying, well, actually, no, this is totally fake. This is not what I am, but I'm doing it because I like it. You know, I don't have any right to do it. I like the idea. You know, it felt like a big relief to be postizo and proud. No.